All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am Merkaba18, and we are here with our very first build guide for Season 3 of Diablo 4. First build we're going to be going with in this season is a Minion Necromancer build. Now, there are a couple of caveats that we will get to when we dive deeper into this build, but we're going to walk through the basics. We're going to do the talent tree, we're going to do the Paragon board, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Seneschal and some of the abilities that I think will be good in that, and we're going to talk about some gear and some itemization. So let's dive right into the talent tree here. Now, this is a 50-50 choice. You could make either one if you wanted to. You could go Decompose or Reap. In this particular case, I went Reap because I wanted to have a much better sort of like instant damage dealer. And because of the damage reduction that it gives you, I think will help in the higher levels. So we're going to go 5 out of 5 there all the way, and then we're going to go to Acolytes, which forms a corpse under your enemies whenever they are hit, 1 per 4 seconds. Those are going to be really important. Then we're going to come down here to our core skills, and we're going to go Sever. We're going to go 5 out of 5 for that. We're going to come down to Enhanced, which does increase damage along its path. And then we're going to go with Supernatural. For every minion you have active, it's going to do extra damage. So in this particular case, you're going to have somewhere between 15 and 20 minions. So that's going to be a huge damage boost specifically to Sever. Then we're going to come down and grab Blood or Corpse Explosion, and go all the way up to Blighted, which will turn it into a Darkness skill and do additional damage over time. Now, this is going to be really important here in just a minute. This is basically like so this is going to be, Reap is your essence builder and your main damage doer through most of your encounters with enemies. Then you're going to have your big nuke and your spender. This is the big seagull target and AoE damage. That's going to do the vast majority of your damage. This is going to be your main AoE and like clearing large groups and small non-elites. It's also going to do some effects with shadow damage that we'll talk about as we get into the Paragon board. And don't worry, I'll come back and talk about the passives here in just a minute. We're going to skip curses in this particular case and come down to just a bunch of passives here, which we'll talk about in a minute. We're also going to skip all of our Corpse and Macabre skills there. And we're going to come down and do Army of the Dead. Come to Prime, which will have a chance to leave corpses, and then it also will raise your skeletal warriors in case you don't already have them up. Then we're going to come down, and this is a 50-50 call as well. In some cases, Shadow Blight is going to be more beneficial, and in some cases, Kalen's Edict is going to be more beneficial. I think in most cases, Kalen's going to be your top choice, but you could make a case for Shadow Blight, given that you're also going to be doing a bunch of shadow damage, and so are your minions. So make your choice there. I think more towards the end game, Shadow Blight would probably be better because there's not very many instances in the late game where you're not going to be taking damage. And in that case, go Shadow Blight. But as you're leveling and you're not really dealing or taking much damage, your minions are going to absorb most of it. This is going to be super helpful for their attack speed. Okay, so let's come back and now walk through the Paragon board. Starting all the way down here at the bottom, you're going to grab basics like max life and resistances. All of these are, let me zoom in for you there. All of these are fair takes. Also the increase to damage and max life. We're going to come up and get our first Paragon glyph, which is going to be Darkness. When Darkness is fully maxed out, you'll end up with 85 plus Darkness or shadow damage. And you'll get that bonus, which will give you minions that deal shadow damage to an enemy, grant some additional damage reduction. That damage stacks up to 10% for 5 seconds. Then you'll just grab as much intel in this range. You should get close to 65 intel here with this at max level. You're going to come over and you're going to grab this one, the preservation for the shadow damage and intel. Grab this armor and this armor over here. But then you can skip these dexterities here. You're definitely going to grab all of this willpower and this damage. You're also going to grab knowledge here. And then come up to our second Paragon board. Our second Paragon board is going to be Hulking Monstrosity. Now, there are some buffs coming to golems in this patch, and some specific items that are going to help make your golem even stronger. They're also, all of your golems are now going to cleave, whereas there were certain ones that did not prior to Season 3. So Golem damage is going to go way up, and we're going to go all the way up straight to our second Paragon board glyph, which is Golem. Now this is going to do increased damage for every 5 willpower within range. At max, you're going to get that up to about 175% increased damage, and they're going to end up with a bonus of 25% increased life. So we don't know exactly what changes are coming to minions yet, but they did say during their live stream that golems are getting a little bit of a number buff. I will let you guys know. I will link the patch notes in the video here so that you guys can see the exact choices and buffs that they're getting. Golems are going to be much stronger here. So we're going to go ahead and come down to Golem damage and Frenzied Golem for our rare nodes. Grab all of these. You're also going to grab as much willpower at max. You could get 55 or 45 here, looks like. We're going to come up here and get Mutation, which gives more damage as well. And then we're going to grab Miscreation, which gives us more armor. And if we end up with 260 willpower, which at max level should not be a problem, you'll get more armor there as well. So we can grab these willpower choices, Golem armor, and then we're going to come down here and grab the additional Golem damage with Infused. We're going to come up and grab our Legendary Node, which gives us 40% more life and 100% increased damage. Now, all of those are going to start to add up. That's going to be substantial. We're going to give them a little bit of resistance here and grab Flesh Horror for Golem armor and resistance. We're going to go Borrowed Strength and give them damage to us while we have a Golem active. Now, in most cases, you want your Golem to stay alive, and that will also give you additional damage there. So then we're going to come up to our third Paragon board, which will be Cult Leader. Now, these are going to do additional damage for minions. So we can come straight over and grab our Cult Leader right out of the gates. Your minions deal 15% each increased damage for each minion type. This only applies to skeletal warriors, so you're going to get basically the more you have your golem mages and warriors active, they're going to do 45% more damage. We're going to skip these minion max life over here, come over to warrior damage right here, come up to minion attack speed and minion damage, grab all of those. Now, minion attack speed and your attack speed are going to be some of the more important stats in this build, so keep that in mind as we're going through this. Third glyph is going to be Dead Razor, which is going to give us 25% minion damage and increase the damage reduction. You're also then going to get that stackable damage buff for all of your minions. You're going to get more, these are going to turn your rare nodes into more powerful ones, so you're going to grab Overlord. You're also going to grab Custody, which gives you damage reduction to your minions. Okay, so we're going to skip these magic resistances because they're too hard to get to. If we went and grabbed these, we would not be able to quite get to our third or fourth glyph slot. And those are going to be more important in this particular case. So the third or fourth and final board is going to be called Flesh Eater. Now, this rare node, anytime you consume 5 corpses, which you should do pretty much always, you're going to gain 40% increased damage. Now, it's worth noting that your Seneschal is going to gain 1-to-1 bonuses. So that's also going to likely apply to your Seneschal companion. One thing that is not clear at this point is whether or not the Seneschal is considered a minion and therefore inherits your minion damage. I have asked for clarification for that, and if they give any kind of response, I will let you guys know. The last glyph is going to be Territorial, which is just a flat bonus to anything that's close. And given that you're going to want to have all of your minions close, you're going to basically get 87% increased damage and then 15% reduction. And then you're going to fill out up to 44 dexterity there. We're going to skip these resistances, skip the damage to elites, and then just fill in this board so that we end up with four glyphs and 4 legendary notes. Now, let's go back to our talent tree, and I'll talk about some of the bonuses and passives. This is a very passive-heavy build. We're skipping a couple of talents because of the space in our board, and it allows us to do more damage. So we're going to go Unliving Energy, which gives us more essence, increases the damage of our core skills, which is Sever, but also makes them cost more. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. Then we're going to come down. We go 1 of 3 on Grim Harvest to give us more essence for every time we consume a corpse. And then when you consume a corpse for 6 seconds, you're going to deal additional damage, which is basically going to be all a constant uptime. We're going to skip all of these passives except for one of the still best passives in the game, Death's Embrace, which gives us more damage to close, and we take less damage from close. So these, you're basically going to want to stand at or near your companions and your minions for reasons we'll talk about here in a second as well, because you're going to gain damage and take less. We're going to go 1 out of 3 on Reaper's Pursuit. Damaging enemies with a darkness skill increases your movement speed. You're just getting that so that you can get to these other ones. Anytime you do damage with a darkness, you're going to increase 6% shadow damage for you and your minions, stacking up to 3 times, which should be always. So you're going to get a 6 times 3, 18% damage bonus to shadow damage at all times. You deal 9% increased shadow damage to enemies that are stunned, mobilized, or crowd controlled. These bonuses also apply to your minions. We're going to go Crippling Darkness, which gives you 15% chance to stun anytime you do shadow damage. We're going to come over and do Golem Mastery. And we also grabbed over here, we're going to grab Skeletal Warrior Mastery for increased damage to your minions. So this one's going to give you 75% damage and health to your Golem. We're going to go Inspiring Leader for minion attack speed. We're going to go Hellbent Commander for increased damage when you are close to your minions. And then minions gain 12% resistance and armor. So huge buffs to passives and to minions here. Now, this is some of the gear choices. So let's talk about this. This one's going to be very heavy on non-uniques, but there are a couple of uniques that you're going to want to use. Let's start with Black River. Black River is going to buff your corpse damage or corpse explosion. It's basically going to deal more damage and it's going to be an increased range. The other option later into the boss tiers, if you get them, is going to be Doombringer. Doombringer is another good one here. But for the most part, Black River is going to be your top choice there. You're going to want to do Flicker Step, which is still probably going to be best in slot boots. We're going to go Howl from Below, which is going to create a volatile skeleton that runs at and explodes on enemies, which is also going to impact some of the glyphs and choices that we're making in the talent tree. One of the most important items in this build is the Ring of Mendeln, up to a 10% chance to empower all minions to cause their next attack to explode for a bunch of damage. That's going to scale with a lot of your Paragon board choices. So one of the most crucial items in this build. Beyond that, you're going to want to use a couple of different aspects here. First one is the maximum number of skeletons. You can put any of these in any of the spots. There is one I will talk about here that you're going to want to put on your amulet for the bonus. We're going to get basically 4 extra warriors and minions from Bloodgetters and from Occult. We're going to grab this one, which is a base skill that we're going to be using almost all the time, is going to grant us almost a 100% uptime on damage reduction. Very important piece of the build there. We're going to come down to our offhand and use Frenzied Dead, which gives us minion damage. Anytime your minions deal damage, they gain attack speed for 3 seconds. So you're going to gain a lot of attack speed through that. That one is called Frenzied Dead. We're going to gain Unyielding Commanders, which is while your Army of the Dead is active, your minions gain attack speed and take way less damage. So because of Flicker Step, you're going to have a pretty high uptime on Army of the Dead. So you're going to want to use that as often as possible to gain attack speed and damage reduction, and then blink through and evade through so that you're constantly refreshing your Flicker Step update. Then we're going to go Aspect of Reanimation, which is going to go specifically on your amulet so that you gain the increased damage while alive, up to 60% flat damage after 10 seconds. So as long as your minions are alive, specifically like your Golem, and as long as your minions are alive, you're gaining up to 60% damage from them just being alive, which is a huge just passive bonus for them. So let's talk about the Book of the Dead. You're going to go... you're going to go with, let's see if I can find their Book of the Dead. Down here. I don't think they actually have the tool, but you're going to go with Reapers. You're going to go with Iron Golem with the Slam, and then you're going to go with um, Shadow Mages so that they're doing shadow damage. Now we are unclear still whether or not what the exact look of the buffs for golems are, but you're going to definitely want to use that Iron Slam. Now, one of the things that they talked about in the dev live stream is that these effects, these tuning stones, are going to have direct impact. So, like, let's say, for example, we go with Lightning Bolt. You can turn the Lightning Bolt into a partial. So basically, it turns it into if you go Dusk support on that, it can turn it into a Shadow Lightning Bolt. So in almost all cases with this build, Dusk support is going to be super helpful. The other ones that are going to be super helpful are these mysterious ones. We know what one of these is going to do. It turns your, every time it triggers, it gives you a +4 to all stats or all skills. So you're going to want to target that one. Some other ones that you're going to look at are Swift support to gain attack speed bonuses, and Tactical to decrease the cooldowns so that you're constantly recycling that shadow damage and doing additional shadow damage with your Seneschal. I personally, with this particular build, would avoid some of the passive or defensive ones like Reconstruction or Protect. I would also avoid some of the like auto defense that shoots down projectiles. Go with the more offensive oriented ones because you want your Seneschal to do as much damage. The entire point of this build is that your minions, and again, we don't know if this is considered a minion and inherits those stats. We'll find out soon enough. But those are going to help do additional damage. I want to see what some of these look like, and I will update this video as I need to. I want to see what some of these look like before I choose specific guiding stones or governing stones. But tuning stones, you're going to go with, again, Swift support, Tactical support. You're going to want to do Dusk support here. And then you're going to want to definitely target Evernight and potentially Genesis, depending on what it does. I will let you guys know as we build and go through the season and experiment what some of those are going to look like and what some of the best choices are. But that is my build guide for Season 3. This is going to be one that I think is super useful. I will also update this video if there are any, they did not show the new Necromancer unique or aspects. So as soon as we find out what that is, I will let you know in this video below whether or not you're going to want to target that. So thank you so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and I will see you again soon for the next one.